In this box is the most exciting invention for paramotors in probably a decade. It will not only make your flights more enjoyable, but safer as well. But if you're a paramotor pilot, you're gonna hate it. Now, before I tell you what was in the box, I want to give a shout out to Michael Royal, who won the lighted props at Endless Foot Drag this year. So congratulations, Michael. And we'll be giving away another pair of those on this channel, so stay tuned to that. We won't be giving them away until we're in production, which we're hoping is before spring. So I think sometime in late February, early March, crossing my fingers on that. But I'll keep you informed and I'll let you know. Now, for those of you guys who do fly paramotors, put the brakes on, because most of my channel subscribers actually don't fly these things. So let me give a little bit of information to them and then I'll kind of explain what was in the box. So when you're first learning to fly these things, and usually they'll have a net, but ignore that, I need to be able to get through here. So for demonstration purposes, I took that off. But you'll see these strings which are tied to your paramotor. Now these strings, the one that's important is this one with a handle on it. And when they give it to you, they tell you it's called a brake. And you pull down on it. Although it doesn't actually stop you, it's more like a flap. It exchanges lift for speed. And if you only pull one, then it's going to turn you in one direction or the other, depending on which one you pull, because you have one in each hand. So this is a brake. And then once you get used to that brake, then your instructor will hand you a bicycle brake. It's not actually a bicycle brake, but it looks exactly like one. If you flipped it 90 degrees to where the end of the lever was on the index finger instead of on your pinky, the fulcrum still being, instead of on the center, on the outside of your hand. Yeah, so they hand you this brake too, except they don't call it a brake, it's called a throttle. And instead of stopping you, this makes you go. So you have this brake, but it's not really a brake, and then you have this brake, and that's when it hits you. That you've got to hold both of these in the same hand, using the same fingers in order to control this brake and this brake, even though this brake is not a brake. And technically this brake is not a brake either. So with these two brakes, you're now trying to figure out how to pull one without pulling the other, or how to pull one without pulling the other. And most pilots manipulate it to where they use two fingers or one finger on the throttle brake and the other on the actual glider brake. By the way, there's a name for this, and it's called a toggle. So I'm going to refer to this as a toggle, and this brake I'll refer to as a throttle, because again, it's not a brake. So here you have this brake, and you have this brake, and then it becomes worse, because then you have to figure out how to adjust these guys down here. These are your trims. They affect the backside of your wing, making you go slower or faster relative to the wind and the wind speed, and they provide either more stability or more lift. And you try to pull down on these while not trying to pull down on these, and while holding this and not trying to pull in on this. Needless to say, when you get one of these, you will pull your trims in and pull the throttle at the same time. There's just no way not to do it for the first 100 times you try. And this is not the only kind. There's multiple brake throttles out there. Most of them are in this configuration. Some of them are trigger. Even one is just moving one finger. But ultimately, it comes down to this. These are the most over-engineered, underdeveloped products you've ever seen. They're horrible. They are a horrible idea. Now, I made a video about this. I think it was episode 5. I will leave the video link up there as well as in the description if you want to go back and look at that. But basically, I needed a throttle because it broke. So I made one out of a wooden dowel and a thumb adjuster for a lawnmower. And I love that throttle. And I would still be using it today, except it was held together by a giant bolt and some rubber bands. It wasn't exactly safe, but it was better than those things. Now, if you're a pilot, you're probably used to those throttles and this toggle, and you're used to being able to manipulate your fingers to use them. But you weren't always this way. When you first learned, your brain hated the idea of having to manipulate both the throttle and the brake. You just got used to it. And your brain became accustomed to it. And now it's probably second nature for you if you've been flying for, more than 100 hours or so. Now, ergonomically, there's not an occupational therapist or someone who studies ergonomics that would look at the two brakes in one hand and say, oh, this is a great idea, because it's really not a great idea. But this is. This is called a Throggle. It's a funny name, but it's a great design. What it is it's a thumb throttle that fits in your hand, and you use the thumb in order to add or let go of the gas. It attaches to the toggle, and it stays on the toggle while your wing is clipped into your harness or your paramotor. So when you stow the brakes, the throttle stays with the brake. You take the brake off, and the throttle is now in your hand. Conveniently, there's a lever here that if you push down with your index finger, it's cruise control. So you set the throttle and you set cruise control, and you can adjust that cruise control by using your index finger here and by pushing the throttle down or in. There's also a kill switch, and that kill switch has to be fully depressed and doesn't stick out. So it must be intentional to kill the engine. It's a great design, but if you've been flying paramotors for a while, you probably hate this thing, because your first thought is, why would I want my throttle attached to my brake handle? What if the propeller hits it, for instance? Which means that you haven't routed your cable properly, and you should probably talk to your instructor. But what happens if your cable catches the propeller when it's attached to your hand? Well, both scenarios are not good, and really it's a cable management issue, not a throttle management issue. But I want to give you a scenario where you're actually flying and then you want to use your phone. All you need to do is set cruise, put the brake up, use your phone, pull the brake off, you're back on the throttle, flip this, you're off cruise.
So basically, once you start using this throttle, you won't use another one, because you're just dealing with your hands on the brakes. You're not dealing with anything else now. It's so simplified. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. With a single hand, I can control the finite details of cruise control, or I can turn cruise control on or off. It's just brilliant. It's changed the way I fly 100%. So right now I'm coming down, and I want to just kind of cruise over this, maybe 300, 400 feet. So as I'm coming down, I'm just going to set cruise control. And now that it's set, I'm just going to set the throttle where I want it to go. I'm going to let go of it. And now it's set. One hand. If I quickly want to grab the throttle again and turn cruise control off, it's off. Now it's just me and my thumb. It's so easy. My kill switch is here. impossible to hit unless I depress it all the way. It's just a beautiful design.
What I've noticed when flying this is a freedom to use my hands when I need to use my hands and use the throttle when I need to use the throttle. It's not entirely attached to my hand at all times. It actually gives me more freedom and has made flying much more enjoyable. The problem is that if you're used to the brake handle style throttle, you're going to want to resist this. But hold off on a second. Before you resist the idea, you should try it. Before you list a comment down in the comments below saying this is a horrible idea, you might want to talk to the inventor. It's a guy named Robert Catilla. He spent a long time analyzing the problem of the two brakes in one hand scenario, or the throttle and the brake, and why that's such a bad design. He started from scratch and came up with a design so unique and so wonderful that beginners now no longer have to go through the pain of having two brakes in one hand. They can now have the enjoyment of knowing that just pulling a toggle on each side is the brakes for the wing. Just pushing the thumb allows the paramotor to go faster or slower. Go to your instructor or wherever you went to school and ask to borrow this for 2 flights. Now, if your instructor is not a dealer, have them call up Robert Catilla and ask to become a dealer. He'll work with the schools. In fact, he prefers to go through schools than through dealerships. Truly, I think this is one of those tiny little improvements that has big, big consequences in the long run. I look forward to new students not having to deal with a 2-brake problem in their hand anymore, because I think it's going to make learning to fly much easier.
So I'm sure some of you are wondering, how do you handle forward launches or power forward launches? So in this little clip, I'm going to show you exactly how that's done. It's actually easier than with a brake handle throttle, and that's because at no time are your 4 fingers letting go of the toggle at any point. So as soon as those lines release from your thumb, you're right on to the throttle. Or you hit the throttle, you bring the wing up, and as soon as that A line flies out, you're back on the throttle again. It's very easy.
Anyway, if you like this video and you're not a subscriber, click that subscribe button and leave a like for me if you would. If you like or don't like the idea of the throttle, leave a comment. Let me know why you like or don't like it, but also let me know if you've flown with it before, because there's a big difference once you've flown with it. And once again, thanks for watching.